Coming up on Locked On Dodgers, the Dodgers lost in extras last night, but might that be a good thing? We'll get into the offense and we'll also take a question from a listener. So that's what's on tap. So make sure to keep it Locked On Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yo, Dodger fans. Welcome to Locked On Dodgers. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the number one local sports daily podcast network. Locked On, your team every day. This is the daily podcast covering the Los Angeles Dodgers, bringing you the smart fans' perspective on our boys in blue. You can find us wherever you find podcasts and on YouTube simply by searching for Locked On Dodgers. And make sure to subscribe in both of those places so you won't miss a day because you know we're not going to. If this is your first time listening or watching, I'm Vince Samperio, and I'm usually joined by a co-host. But as the season winds up, Jeff and I taking turns, giving some days off before the big bad October comes, and we're here every day with you. So, we're both lifelong Dodgers fans that have covered the team in a variety of ways, continue to cover the team. And one of those ways we cover the team is by doing this podcast here every weekday morning. And we talk about the Dodgers, and that's what we are going to do today. Real quick before we start, this episode's coming to you a little bit later than normal. Candidly speaking, just the game went really long last night, and I didn't make it through because there's been a lot going on for me last few days. But we're good now, and we're moving forward. And we're here to bring you Dodger content, Dodger podcasts, and talk about the Dodgers. Now, I teased in the beginning of the show that the Dodgers lost, but maybe that's a good thing. And it's never a good thing when the Dodgers lose. But if you have to lose and you're rearing up for the playoffs and Craig Kimbrel blows the game, at this point, that's what most Dodger fans would consider maybe a win-win situation of Craig Kimbrel pitching himself out of the October roster. And yeah, that's what happened. He came in the 10th inning, runner on base, intentional walk to put the force play on. He got an out, intentional walk, struck out Manny Machado, 2 outs, first and second, had 2 strikes on Brandon Drury, loses them with some non-competitive pitches, gets to Jorge Alfaro, who hadn't walked in like 60 plate appearances and was only walked 11 times all season, and walked him with the last 2 pitches being just non-competitive fastballs that even Jorge Alfaro said, oh, I'm not going to swing at that. So Craig Kimbrel in the end got the loss, gave up, well, I guess technically an unearned run, but now pushes his last 7 games. He's pitched a 6 1/3 inning, giving up 4 earned runs, just 3 hits, but 5 walks and just 4 strikeouts. And that's not the recipe for success. We've talked about Kimbrel all season long and how the stuff was there. And early on, it was a little bit of bad luck with mixed in here and there with some bad command in terms of walks, bad command or bad control, bad command in the zone. Couldn't figure it out. Figured out for like a little stretch there after the let it go phenomenon started. And now we sit here all wanting Craig Kimbrel to not pitch in October. And honestly, I think it might happen at this point. He is by far the worst reliever on the Dodgers right now. And that's with Yency Almonte coming back, and the Dodgers have to make a decision. David Price just came back, and they'll have to make a decision on how many starters they want to take. But at this point, I think I would take pretty much every guy on the maybe not on the almost every guy on the 40-man roster over Craig Kimbrel. And Kimbrel's frustrated. He's human being. He has feelings. And they asked him about how his postseason roster spot might be up for grabs, and he said, "quote I think I've got some good pitching to do in the next couple of days to prove that. I know I can. I don't think I can. I know I can. I just got to do it." He said it was pulling off his fastball, and that was the issue with there. But I mean, you go down and you look at this roster, you look at the active roster, and I'm taking every single pitch on the active roster over Craig Kimbrel right now. That includes Michael Grove, who hasn't pitched that well, but who hasn't pitched that much, but has pitched well in his time here. And honestly, I mean, other than maybe Justin Brule, Yeah, other than Justin Brule, maybe him and Pepio are similar, but even then, Pepio has better upside and better chance of completing the inning without giving up a run. So, yeah, it's come to the point where I don't think we're going to see Craig Kimbrel in October, and I don't think anyone's going to lose any sleep over it other than Craig Kimbrel. And, I saw some stuff floating around that the Dodgers do have some guys coming back. They got Dustin May will come back eventually, but probably not this season. Gonsolin might come back before the end of the season. You got Yency Almonte coming back. Blake Trinan, maybe not before the end of the season, but he'll come back. And it's a matter of they might need the space on the 40-man roster to where Kick Kimbrel maybe finishes the season, but maybe doesn't start the postseason with the Dodgers. That's very possible. But yeah, I mean, there's nothing more to say at this point. It's been a whole season, and other than that one stretch where he was really really good, he's been really really inconsistent the rest of the time. And a lot of his early saves in the start of the season were basically because the Dodgers had a multiple run lead. If the Dodgers had given him the ball a lot more in one run leads, he'd have a lot more blown saves, and we probably have a lot more inks towards him than we already do. So I honestly don't know what he could show in this last 8 games that's going to prove to me that, oh, yeah, I want this guy on my October roster. Because also, if he's not the closer, we've talked about this. If he's not the closer, he doesn't have a role in this bullpen. Where do you put him? Is he your last guy? Him and Bickford, or him and Bickford fighting for a last spot, or him and David Price, or him and someone else fighting for a last spot on the roster? It's possible, but yeah, I mean, there's not much else to say. Craig Kimbrel has not been good. He's not been good the entire season, and he's not good enough to be on this, one of the relievers in this bullpen right now. And I don't think there's enough time for him to do it. Let's just say he makes 3 to 4 appearances in the next 8 games. They're all scoreless. Does that really sway you? Does that sway you? It doesn't sway me. And then barring some other collapse. Now, the point of him maybe not making it through the season on the roster or being DFA'd, whatever the case is. Yeah, I don't think. I think if they can figure out a way to handle all that without doing that, yeah, because you have to protect yourself from injuries and everything else. And yeah, at some point, Craig Kimbrel would be good enough to be part of it after like 2, 3, 4 injuries. But at this point, he's not. And that's really all there is to it. There's not much else to say. I'm sure we'll talk about him a couple more times here in the next week. But yeah, Craig, you had your chance and you blew it. And we all remember Craig Kimbrel standing in the bullpen when Juan Uribe hit that home run with his hand on his hip. Might be a matter of him standing on with his hand on his hip, looking on the outside in again, because I don't think he's going to be pitching for the Dodgers in October. And honestly, at this point, I don't know if I can justify saying, "Oh, I hope he figures it out and he's pitching in October," because I don't think it's going to happen, and I don't think there's enough time for him to happen, and I don't think the Dodgers can. I don't think they can put any trust into him, and I don't want them to put trust into him for the season they're having. They're going to set the franchise record in wins. They have been the best team in baseball since the All-Star break, and a little bit before that. They have it all there, and yeah, Craig Kimbrel should not be the reason that a potential World Series is lost. So that's going to do it on Craig Kimbrel talk. We're going to talk about the offense, and if we're concerned a little bit, just they've been struggling over the last month or so. So that's what's on tap. So make sure to keep it locked on Dodgers. All right, summer is winding down. The nights are getting longer, but the breeze isn't the only thing that's getting stiff. That's right. This episode is sponsored by BlueChew, and we all know that confidence can take you far in life. We've seen it happen on the baseball field, and maybe we've seen it happen in the bedroom, or maybe you've seen it happen in the bedroom. Either way, it's time to step up to the plate, and that's where BlueChew comes in, because BlueChew is a unique online service that delivers the same active ingredients as Viagra and Cialis, but in chewable tablets and at a fraction of the cost. It's a simple process. Go to BlueChew.com. You consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. No doctor visits, no awkward conversations, no waiting in line. And BlueChew's tablets are made in the U.S. and prepared and shipped direct to your door in a discreet package. Now, with BlueChew, men everywhere excited to see the postman because when your package has arrived. First impressions are important, so why not make it a lasting impression with Blue Chew? So if you can benefit from extra confidence when it's time to perform, chew it and do it. And we've got a special deal for our listeners. Try Blue Chew free when you use our promo code Locked On at checkout. Just pay $5 shipping. That's BlueChew.com, promo code Locked On to receive your first month free. Visit BlueChew.com for more details and important safety information. And we thank Blue Chew for sponsoring the podcast. All right, so the Dodgers offense last night put up 3 runs. Wasn't the prettiest way to put up 3 runs, but they did it. They left a lot of men on base, 36 men left on base in total. 8 of those from Will Smith, 6 of those from Justin Turner, which coincidentally is not really any of the guys we're concerned about offensively. So I don't think there's an issue. Now we're going back over the last 30 days, and Will Smith is 4th on the team in OPS at 803, and Justin Turner's 1st on the team in OPS in 1.019. So it's just a off night for them. Not concerned. But what is concerning is that in the last 30 days, the Dodgers only have 5 players that have an OPS over 750. And as we know, yes, there's been pitching issues in the past. At times, there's been maybe some managerial decisions at times that have hurt the Dodgers. But in the end, it always comes down to the offense not scoring enough runs most of the time. And that's what's the scary part about this. And those 5 that are OPSing over 750 is Justin Turner, Austin Barnes, Freddie Freeman, Will Smith, Max Muncy. Now, Trace Thompson, Trey Turner, Mookie Betts, all OPSing over 700. But, realistically, that's not ideal. Trace Thompson does have 5 home runs in that time. His slugging is 444, but he's hitting just 175 over the last 30 games. Well, 21 games for him. Trey Turner, is okay, being okay. Mookie Betts, okay. These guys are still driving in runs, but they're not necessarily heading at the clip that they were before. Then you drop down into Gallo, Taylor, Bellinger, Lux, all OPSing 6. Gallo's at 614. Everyone else is at 600 or less. And, for all the talk about this offense, it seems like it has been a little bit of a struggle recently. And, some of these games that they won, they would be in a tougher stretch right now of wins and losses if they didn't have those couple comeback wins against the Diamondbacks and a couple low scoring wins over the course of the last few weeks. And there's different ways to think about it. Now, is the edge off a little bit? The edge of, all right, well, we clinched the division, whatever, blah, blah, blah. I don't think that comes to it in hitting, because realistically, you want to always hit. Like, you have stats to put up, you have whatever to put up. Maybe a guy like Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, they have a little bit long-term stability. They, don't necessarily worry about stats as much, but obviously they still want to win. These guys all still want to win every game. Trey Turner, contract year, he's still hitting well, but just over the course of the last month, not as well as he was hitting at the beginning of the season. But it's obviously always going to be concerning when the offense isn't putting up runs. I do think that the good part is that they're still continuing to put up good at bats for the most part. Other than against Zach Gallen and a couple others, maybe they've for the most part been competitive in putting up at bats. When it does come down to it, they do have 6 guys with an on-base percentage over 300 over the last month, which is a little bit better. And slugging percentage wise, they got a few guys over 450. They got 5, 6 guys hovering around or above 450 slugging. So it's not all doom and gloom. It's just a little bit concerning. One of those that I'm concerned about, and we talked about this before, is Gavin Lux. Now, Gavin Lux over the last 30 days or 30 games has only played in 11 of those games, but he's hitting 216 with a 237 on base, 243 slugging. He's not hitting for any power, and he hasn't hit for power for most of the season, but he's now really not hitting for power and hasn't done much, has been striking out at a higher clip than he was at the start of the year. And, yeah, just hasn't been a big contributor. And, I don't know. There's a path there, and I talked about this before, where Max Muncy plays second base in the postseason, and Joey Gallo's the DH, and then you got Taylor or Trace Thompson in left or center, and you got Bellinger or Taylor or Thompson in left, or you got Bellinger, Thompson, Taylor in center, or you got Taylor or Thompson in left, and realistically, that is the way things are trending right now. Joey Gallo, while he's not hitting for high average, has driven in the most runs over the last month, or second most runs on the Dodgers over the last month. He's up there, good enough in OPS. Sorry, fourth most for Gallo over the last month RBI, but he's hitting 341. Oh no, he's hitting 155. OPS is 614. So not that great, but better than Lux. And what Dave Roberts said is that they're gonna play the best players. And you know, I guess what they have to decide is, was the first 100 or so games of Gavin Lux what he is and what he will be, or is the last 30 games or so indicative of what he is right now? He's been dealing with that neck injury, he's been dealing with some other stuff here and there. There's always adjustments to be made, pitchers adjusting to him, and he has to kind of flip the switch and adjust on them. And, the back and forth battle continues. So, yeah, for Lux, I don't know. For Cody Bellinger, we've talked about that before. He's not good enough to be in the starting lineup realistically, but on this team, the way everything goes, we've talked about it. If Mookie, Trey, Freddie, Will, Turner, Muncy, those top six are hitting, your bottom three don't matter too much, and you can play more for defensive purposes than anything else. But if those first six aren't hitting, then yeah, your 7, 8, 9 are going to hurt a little bit more if they're not hitting. So the other part, and we talked about this before, was Bellinger and Taylor. They've been proven postseason performers, even if their regular season didn't quite go that well. So yeah, there's a lot to it. Am I concerned about the offense? I'm always concerned about the offense. If you guys know me, like I said, the Dodgers, I've said it before and I'll say it again. If the Dodgers scored 10 runs every single game the entire season, I would expect them to get shut out in game one, just because I guess it's a pessimist, but I've just seen it a lot. I've seen the Dodgers lose series they should have won because the offense went ice cold. And yes, you're facing better pitching in the postseason, but you guys are, you know, some of the best hitters in baseball, and some of the best pitchers in baseball shouldn't be shutting you down every single time you're at the plate. Maybe once out of four, but if you can beat them that one time and you can string together a couple of those one times in an inning or two, then now you're putting up runs. So offense, yes, concerning. I need to see more out of Lux. I need to see more out of everyone realistically, but I feel like Lux, Gallo, Thompson, Taylor, Bellinger are all fighting for 3 spots. And we're going to see who the best man is, or who the best man is going to be. And that's the way it goes. So we have a question from a listener. That's what's going to come up next. But first, let's talk about Locked On Dodgers, because you can find us wherever you find podcasts and on YouTube simply by searching for Locked On Dodgers. All right, we put out a call for questions the other day, and we have those questions still. We'll probably answer them one or two at a time over the course of the week. But this one comes from at Cozy J with 4 Ys. He says, was it a mistake for the Dodgers to rely on injured pitchers coming back to be available for us in the postseason instead of acquiring more pitching at the deadline? Now, hindsight 2020, yeah, it was a mistake, because now you're looking at Walker Buehler out for the year, Blake Trinan might not pitch, Craig Kimbrel not hurt but not good. David Price was hurt for a little bit, Tony Gonsolin been hurt, Dustin May just went on the injured list, and now you're looking at, whoa, what are the Dodgers going to do? And yeah, hindsight 2020, was it a mistake? Yes, but at the time, I don't think it was a mistake. I think it was a risk. And to this point, the risk hasn't necessarily paid off too much. It's a good thing they went out and got Chris Martin. He's been really good for the Dodgers, and, will be realistically a key cog in the playoff rotation. But other than that, it was a risk. And sometimes risks don't work out. Sometimes you go sign, or sometimes Yankees went and traded for Frankie Montas. Maybe ill advised since he did have that shoulder issue right before the deadline. But regardless, they went out and got what was considered maybe the second best starting pitcher on the market at the time, and he might not even pitch for them in the postseason, and hasn't really. Sorry guys, I'm tired. Hasn't really contributed to them much since they got him. He's been one of the worst pitchers actually since they got him. So you know, did the Yankees make a mistake by trading for a pitcher? There's flip sides to it, and there's always different sides to these questions. But I don't think it was a mistake. I think it was a risk. The risk is not paying off, and now they're not scrambling, but they still need a lot to go right in this next 2 weeks um, to be comfortable. Well, to be more comfortable heading into October. The good part is you got three starting pitchers that are good to go, ready to go. You got Julio, you got Kershaw, you got Tyler Anderson. Those are going to be your three starters. What they are missing is that fourth starter and maybe a little bit of depth behind them in the bullpen. You have Dustin May, you have Tony Gonsolin, you have Andrew Heaney. Realistically, some combination of that trio, assuming health, is going to pitch in a postseason game, likely in maybe a piggyback situation or a 3-3 situation, something like that. And one of those guys is probably going to be like more of a bullpen arm because, like I said, the Dodgers can strengthen their bullpen from above. And yeah, you look at it and yeah, should they have traded for another starter? Probably. I do. I don't. I'm still hesitant to use the word mistake. I don't think it was a mistake. I think, like I said, a risk, a big risk. I'll give that. It was a big risk, and it didn't work out. And it was risky to take a big risk with a team of this caliber that was performing at the way they were performing, knowing that hey, we're gonna have a really good chance at winning a World Series. Now, do I think that the Dodgers don't have enough pitching to win a World Series? Not at all, because regardless of how you feel about the pitching and everything else, we've seen teams with worse pitching win championships. You look back at some of those Giants teams, they were bad. They had bad starters. They had relievers that stepped up and Madison Bumgarner who stepped up, but they were having starters go like 2, 3, 4 innings at a time. They weren't that good. We saw the Royals 2015, strong bullpen, not as strong starting pitching, but they did get some people to step up here and there. And they did go get Cueto. So maybe not the greatest example, but regardless, that's what happened. And then, we've seen other teams. The Nationals had the worst bullpen in baseball by stats heading into the 2019 postseason. And they had Steven Strasburg and they had Max Scherzer. And then, a couple rungs below, I think they had Corbin at that time or whoever, they didn't have a good pitching staff. Let's just say that. They had two aces and a bunch of guys, and those guys all stepped up and they performed and they won the World Series. So, like same with the hitting. The Dodgers could have allowed 0 runs the entire season, and I would not feel comfortable. Flip side here, that's what it is. But no, it was a risk. It hasn't worked out. But if Dustin May can come back, if Tony Gonsolin can come back, if Blake Trinan can come back, if those three guys can come back, it makes that risk a little bit better. Obviously, they have to come back and perform well, but that's not necessarily, the question, because you could have traded for somebody and they don't necessarily perform well, a la Yu Darvish in the 2017 World Series. Perform well in the regular season, perform well in the first two series, didn't perform that great in the World Series. So it's not guaranteed. And you look at it and, you look at teams that did acquire pitching. I do think now that we've seen the extension Luis Castillo signed, I do think that would have been somebody to go after because they signed him to a pretty, 5 years, 108 mil extension. That's not that much money for a top tier starting pitcher, even if he's not your number one. Let's just say, even when Walker Buehler's back and even with Julio here, maybe he's your number 3 type starter. But realistically, the Dodgers might offer Tyler Anderson I always forget what it's called, the qualifying offer. That's going to be around 18, 19 mil anyways. So if you can get a top tier starting pitcher and all-star starting pitcher over 5 years for about 20 mil. That's not, 21 mil, 22 mil, whatever it was. That's not bad. But, like I said, hindsight, well, 2020. But also, I do think Castillo should have been somewhere on the radar. Pablo Lopez probably should have been somewhere on the radar. Teams were asking for a lot. The Dodgers have that farm system. We've just seen Gavin Stone dominate the minor leagues. He just dominated his last start for OKC the other day. And, he's another guy that might come up. And realistically, they probably could have traded for a couple of these guys using him or not using him, in a good way. Gavin Stone, he wasn't like a guy that was expected to be, and he's kind of risen through the rankings over the last year, and now he's a legitimate prospect. And, it's similar to guys they've done that with in the past, Willie Calhoun and Jose De Leon and guys like that who have overperformed in the minors, risen up the prospect rankings, didn't really have a spot on the Dodgers, and then were used to trade for players. Now, De Leon was traded for Forsythe, which wasn't that great, but regardless, that's what it is, and that's how it goes. And Andrew Friedman made a decision, and the front office and everyone else. And did it work out? Not in the way they hoped. Can it work out? It can still work out because the Dodgers are still good enough to win the World Series, but it's also going to take a collective effort, more so than it would have took if they had acquired a big time reliever or a big time starter. So yeah, not a mistake, just a big risk. And as of this point, the risk isn't working out, but it very well possibly still could. So that's how it is. Thanks for that question. We got, like I said, more questions coming the rest of the week. If you have any question that you want to ask, make sure to send it to us at Locked On Dodgers, and we'll take care of it. That's going to do it for today. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day every day. Check out Locked On MLB for your second listen of the day. Paul Francis Sullivan's bringing humor, passion, and unique perspective on all the teams and biggest stories around the league. It's the number one daily league-wide podcast. You can find it on the Odyssey app or wherever you get podcasts. You can find us in those same places as well. You can also find us on social media, Twitter and Instagram at Locked On Dodgers. Jeff is on Twitter at Snider. I'm at Vince Samperio. You can call and leave us a voicemail or send us a text at 323-863-5625. Our DMs are open on all the social accounts. You can also send us an email, lockedondodgers@gmail.com. We're here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be with us. When you get in your car, if you're at home, text your smart device, play podcast, Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. Have a good one.